Oh. Zoom, we start.
We call this March 22nd, 2018 meeting of the AMATS Policy Committee to order. The time is 1:30. We'll start with the roll call. Mr. Constant.
Here.
Mr. Weldon.
Here.
Mr. Schutte for Mayor Berkowitz.
Here.
Ms. Heil.
Here.
We have quorum. Craig, will you please do the public announcement?
You bet. All AMATS meetings are open to the public, and the public is invited to comment. If we have a business item, we'll have a presentation by staff or a consultant, and then the committee will be given a chance to discuss the matter, and then after that, the public will be invited to comment.
Thank you. Do we have approval of the agenda?
Move to approve?
Second.
Do we have any changes?
I don't have any changes, but just a brief comment. Mr. Welton and I talked about this a little bit after we received the comments back from the AMATS group on the resolution that we sent forward. And it was surprising to see they were kind of prompted to or allowed to make amendments to the document. And we were pretty sternly told, no, you shouldn't do that because this is going to mess up that process. And so it was an interesting thing to see our friends up in Fairbanks have a little more flexibility than we were granted in the process. So that's just commentary, not to really to the minutes, but I don't want to bring it up later, so thank you. It was noted.
Well, it is in the minutes that we did make once.
Substantive change.
Thank you.
All right then, since there are no objections, the agenda is approved. We have before us the minutes from the February 22nd, 2018 for approval. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve?
Second.
Any changes to discuss? None, any
Oh, I
objections?
have one small thing. This is a minute,
Yes.
Yes.
page 11. I will try to spare you the lecture, and I am certain, I hope I never use this phrase, bike trail. It says, asked if the bike trail project, can we just call it the trail project? Because I don't believe we have bike trails in Anchorage, and I'm very thankful for that.
SDA would disagree with that.
That's a little different, this kind of trail. But those are multi-use trails, actually. All the state trails are multi-use.
Not the ones,
Not the SDA trails.
Yes, they are.
I thought they get flagged for bike only.
and not the ones in Girdwood.
The ones going to Girdwood, I think, are officially going to be multi-use.
We were told at the meeting on Tuesday
I
night.
think so, but I don't think that's official. Anyway,
All right.
so I would like to have on that line, I don't know which, Assembly Weddleton asked if the strike bike and just put trail.
I can attest that he always corrects the public that they are not bike trails.
Would you guys like my lecture on that?
We've heard
No.
it.
I can attest.
All right, any objections to approving the minutes with the recommended changes? Hearing none, the February 22nd minutes are approved. Moving on to agenda item 5A, the 2018-2019 Unified Planning Work Program, Major Amendment 1. Craig, will you be presenting?
Will. So last year, in the 2017 budget, we had $55,000 set aside for a contract for the Human Services Coordinated Transportation Plan. Basically, bottom line is, it took longer than expected to get through the purchasing process. So by the time it was awarded, late in the year, we were not able to spend the money, although it has been awarded and the contract signed. And if you've been to a public meeting recently, you know we talked about, and we've had some kickoff meetings for this. So we need to have that $55,000 in our UPWP to pay the folks who are already doing the work. So we took little dollar figures out of here, there, and everywhere to make that $55,000 contract whole. So that's what it is. We have the flexibility, and those numbers are relatively small. There's a possibility that at the end of the fiscal year or end of the calendar year, we might have to do some movement in the budget, which is a pretty normal process, so we just need to get the money into the contract right now, because we already have them under contract and doing work. We need to be able to reimburse them.
Which is it? What project is one?
It's the,
Human Services Transportation.
it's that thing.
We have
You're
to
already ahead.
Figure out a better name for it.
Coordinated plan.
Okay.
So the TAC met 2 weeks ago and agreed that we should make those changes. They recommended it to you for approval.
So, just a quick question about the table. How do I visualize here that we're taking money from one pool and adding it to the next? Because I see the 55 that's added under line 293 in column 3. It's kind of hard to work out.
It's more challenging to do at the table, that's why I put it into the memo, so you can see where it came out of one
Yeah.
task and another.
Is the memo, so the table then is just kind of as it is amended?
So what we do with the memo is we have to give this to
I get that.
the finance department, so they can track the grant, and they plug those numbers in.
Right, so this is-
That's why this is the way it is. It's probably easier to look at the memo to understand
I did.
where it's coming from and where it's going to.
So just my assumption then is that this is the amendment after the change is
Yes.
approved,
That's
not
correct.
during, like,
Right.
before and after. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments by the committee? Okay. Any comments from the public? What is the will of the committee?
Move to approve.
Second?
I believe Mr. Constant.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Costa to approve, and a second by Ms. Heil. Are there any objections to approving the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Thank you. Agenda item 5B, 2015-2018 Transportation Improvement Program Administrative Modification Number 18. Craig, will you be presented?
For the most part, I will attempt to.
All right.
But basically, there's some minor changes in Table 4 and Table 5, which are part of our allocation, and then a significant number of changes in Table 7, which is not part of our allocation. Those are FTA monies to both the railroad and the Public Transportation Department, basically reflecting what they're really going to do this year, sort of thing. So we had, in Table 4, non-motorized, we had money in there for Diamond Center pedestrian and transit improvements of $2 million in 2015. They didn't use that amount way back in 2015. They actually used it for bus stop and facility improvements. So they just need to have this reflect what they did back then, so they can keep the feds happy and get paid correctly, sort of thing. And then you can look at all the changes in Table 7, but they're basically the railroad and the transit, showing what they're going to use their 5310, 5339, 07, et cetera, all sorts of different pots of Federal Transit Administration funds.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Mr. Weldon?
Couple, let's start with, so on the Diamond Center, is this just simply an accounting thing? It doesn't affect what work will be done there?
Well, it's 2015 money, so I'm pretty certain that it is. But Aaron, do you have any?
I have no idea. The request came from Transit, so they would have to speak on it.
Okay, Hugh is comfortable with it, though. He talked to everyone, so I guess he owns the Diamond Center. And so he said, okay, I get it, and he's okay, so. I just, and that's fine, I just wanted to look like money being pulled away, and they're not done with that project yet, but he says it's okay. So the second question here is the railroad money, and is this AMATS money?
No, this is, so both the railroad and the Public Transportation Department get different pots of Federal Transit Administration money. AMATS only has Federal Highway Administration funds to utilize, so. But again, surface transportation dollars being spent inside the AMATS area, they have to be reflected in the TIF, even if they aren't, if we don't control them.
Any other questions by the committee? There you go.
So I move to approve.
No,
Oh, yeah.
we didn't
Public
vote.
comment first.
Oh, sorry.
Any comments from the public? Seeing none, what is the will of the committee?
Move to approve. Second modification.
So we have a motion to move to approve the modification number 18 by Mr. Costa.
For Mr. Weldon.
I'm sorry, Mr. Weldon, and seconded by Mr. Schuler. Are there any objections to moving the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Next, agenda item 5C, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee letter, reducing facilities. Craig, sorry, fatalities. Craig, will you be presenting?
Johnny Will be presenting.
Okay, so and I'll just try to take a little extra time because I think Zach
One of our BPAC members is going to be here to
Fields was
talk
going
about
to
it,
come and-
so we're kind of seeing it
and present
slow
on
roll
this.
it.
He's not here yet. He thought he was coming at 1:45. So, anyways, so earlier this year we had again some very tragic fatalities on our roads, and
Just
the
a point of
BCAP.
order, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Can we switch the agenda then to allow?
There's nothing else.
We got general
We have
information. I think.
general information.
With that, I mean, I'm okay with that.
If you want to.
Would that work better? We'll just rearrange a little bit, get 10, 15 more minutes?
Whatever you want. Yeah, it's fine.
No, you have to make a motion that you approved it.
Okay, make a move to change the agenda so we pick up item 6, general information now, and do the 5C afterwards.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to move the agenda item 5C until after the general information items. Moved by Mr. Wilson, seconded by Mr. Schutte. Do we have any objections? Seeing none, motion's approved. Moving on to agenda item 6A. Glen Highway Integrated Corridor Management Study. Craig?
I believe there we have Jeannie,
I'm waiting for that.
Joanne, and we're warming up the screen.
And a few assumptions have changed in the last day.
Yeah, it should be interesting. So, while this is coming up, I can tell you that this is the Glen Highway Integrated Corridor Management Study. I'm Jeannie Bowie with Kinney Engineering, and Joanne is also here with Kinney Engineering, and then Edith McKee is the DOT project manager, and it's an AMATS funded study. So what we're looking at is non-recurring congestion on the Glen Highway, so rather than the daily, what happens every day, what happens when there's a crash, what happens when the bridge gets closed and nobody can get through for hours. But also weather is non-recurring congestion, construction is non-recurring congestion. So the idea is to look at if there's a way to make it more predictable, your travel on the Glen Highway, so that every day, kind of you move out to Eagle River or Whistler or whatever, and you think, I'm gonna have this long of a commute, and then every once in a while, it's just so much longer. So is there a way to reduce that kind of difference in your travel time per day? The study area is Airport Heights to the Knik River Bridge. Since it's AMATS funded, it's only within the Anchorage municipality. And so what we're doing right now is we're in the data gathering phase. So we're gathering data from several different places. We have an online public survey that's open right now, where we're asking people things like, where do they get on and off the highway? How flexible are they in getting on and off the highway? Do they have to be at work at a certain time, or can they shift their commute? Where do they find out information about what traffic's like on the Glen Highway, and how do they share that information with others? Just kind of general information. Do they have any suggestions for improvement? Do they see any areas that are particularly egregious? Then we have an agency survey out that's out to all of the different agencies, asking how do you respond to something when it happens on the Glen Highway, and how do you coordinate with other people? And then we're doing just general data collection. So there's weather sensors out there that we've got data from, there's traffic volume data, there's crash data. The school district has said that they have information on school bus delay due to the Glen Highway that they'd share, things like that. So here's our online public survey that's open right now. This is like the first screen of it. There's 5 different screens. It takes maybe 5 minutes to fill out. It's not too bad. So as of Monday, I think, yeah, anyway, earlier this week we had 1,500 participants. So we're getting a really good feedback on this one. And I did see it posted today on the Facebook page that everybody looks at. So maybe we get another uptick after today. This is like the first day we posted it on our Facebook page, and it bounced really high. So we've got a lot of good data. And then this graph over here is why are you generally traveling? Like, what's the most common reason you travel on the Glen Highway? So mostly we've got commuters, but we also have a good mix of people who travel for different reasons. One of the screens is a map where a person can put like tag an area and say, I have a safety concern here, or there's always congestion here, or things like that. And then they can type a little comment about what they found there. So we've started to compile those and look at those, and we're getting a lot of really good information from that map. This is information on travel flexibility that we're getting from the survey. So how much shift can you have in your schedule from the this darker blue is I have to get there exactly when I'm going, and this is in the morning versus in the evening. And then it kind of goes around. I can shift a little bit, or I'm completely flexible. So a lot of good data on how flexible people can be with their time.
So, on that slide, that's
Yeah.
surprising to me that it seems like better get to work on time, but you've got 45% say, no, I got a 15-minute leeway there. But coming home, you've got substantially less, who are flexible. It seems like coming home, you'd be
So I think
more flexible. I just wonder what the dynamic is there.
People are in a hurry to get home.
I don't want to get stuck in traffic.
Well, maybe pick up their kids at school, I mean, things like
Sure.
that, I know.
Yeah.
But
yeah, like this completely flexible goes up in the evening. I think there's a little bit of a shift towards more flexibility.
Well, but not at the, not at all, or, you know, if you take the top two, not flexible or 15 minutes, yeah, much more flexibility in the morning than in the.
Well, there's more that fit into that and more that fit into the more flexible. If I'm reading it right.
Interesting.
Yeah, it should be good data on helping us understand, like what the parameters are for what we can do. Okay, this one is a couple different questions. One, how do you travel on the Glen Highway? Mostly it's a single occupant vehicle is the 67%. This is more than one in a passenger vehicle, and then we've got other answers. We got a bicyclist, a commercial truck, walk, taxi. Motorcycle actually is a ride-in one, and a lot of people who rode in motorcycle mentioned in the summer only or things like that. And then these bolded methods of getting information were ones that we were aware of, and they could just click on those. And then we said, what other ways are you getting information? And so we've gotten some good, a good list of where else other people go to get information. And then they're also telling us what radio station, what TV station they listen to. And they're also kind of commenting on what method they think is best, gives them the best information. So it's pretty good. Okay, so that's the online survey and it's open till April 1st. So anybody who wants to take it, please do. We're still looking for comments. So then I told you we have the stakeholder survey. So this is the full list of stakeholders that the survey's been sent to, and the green checks are survey responses that we already have back. So we have a pretty good response rate for that survey as well. We'll reach out to some whose information we haven't been able to get, like personally, and then also probably have a stakeholder meeting where they meet together and help us understand their coordination a little better. And then we have crash history, for a 10-year history for the most recent crashes that are available. We've been able to get road weather history every 10 minutes for a 10-year period. We don't have the 511 events yet, but we will have a list of all the 511 events for that 10-year period. And then also traffic volume data and speed. And then, yeah, I told you the school district promised some data, and also Chugach Volunteer Fire Department promised some data. So once we have all the data together, we kind of do this is what's happening out there, this is how people get information, this is what's important to everybody. And then with the stakeholders, there's a visioning kind of how do we want the Glen Highway to work? How do we want to coordinate with each other? How do we want to get information to the public? And then figuring out what do we have to do to make that happen? And so we eventually come out with some recommendations that it could be a wide range of things. So like, how do we communicate people? Do we need more signs? Do we need more access to the Facebook or Twitter or whatever? Is there better coordination between agencies or some resources that could help agencies coordinate better? And then maybe even infrastructure, frontage roads, where would they be needed and how would they be helpful? And then demand management kinds of things like HOV lanes, commuter rail. The railroad wasn't on the list of stakeholders, but we didn't meet with the railroad. They don't have anything right now that they really work with, but we did meet with them and talk about what they could do.
Actually, back before you go too far,
Yeah.
sorry. Do we have time for questions? Yes. Okay. Couple things come to mind as I keep looking at autonomous vehicles. They're coming, and I think a week from tomorrow, there's some kind of big thing somewhere about autonomous vehicles. I have it on my calendar. Is it BP Center or something? There's some group here that's looking at it.
ITE is having a conference, I was thinking it was June 8th or something.
I could have it wrong. I have a week from tomorrow, but don't trust me. But I mean, it's here, you know. I mean, they have their first fatality. They're part of our culture now. And but I mean, certainly I don't know, but that's something that seems like it should be in there. And then maybe because this is something we've been dealing with a lot, but one of your kind of stakeholder groups, what about cabs? You know, they're not transit, but, you know, cabbies, they don't go out there. Why don't they go out there? Is there anything that would encourage them to work Eagle River and further points? And there may be something in here that
Okay.
would encourage them to do trips out there or station themselves out there. I don't know what it would be.
Taxi cabs?
Yeah, taxi cabs.
Yeah, that could get some combination of trips.
Should that
or
industry
something.
still exist by the time you finish?
Well, if it's not cabs, it's Uber and Lyft, right? Yeah, I think that'll come in. Maybe we haven't reached out to cabs exactly. Maybe we should. Okay, I think all I had left is kind of schedule. We're doing the data collection right now, the existing conditions report, and then we'll go into the visioning. Basically, the whole thing will hopefully wrap up by the end of the summer. So yeah, any more questions?
Thank you. Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, not a question, just a comment. I was one of the survey takers. It was very well done. Just wanted to pass that along. It was one of those few surveys that are out there that are actually fairly intuitive and engaging, so good job.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments by the committee? No? Any comments by the public? General information, item 6B, 2040 MTP update. Craig?
Underwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Share.
For the record, I'm Vivian Underwood with AMATS. I just wanted to remind you all, you probably received an invitation for a work session on the alternative document that's out. The work session is April 5th in this room from 2:30 to 4:30. And we will be coming to you all for approval of the projects that are modelable to model in May. And we have to keep on our schedule, so we'd appreciate it if you would help us do that, and we need your input as we go along. So in April, we'll have a meeting with you all after the work session. Hopefully, we can discuss your issues then and come back in May and hopefully have your approval to do the modeling. Then, summertime is not a very good time for public involvement, so we're going to be pulling together Tech Memo 3, which is about the alternatives and the preferred alternative. We'll be taking that to the public in October, November, and then we'll be coming back to you in November to get approval of the preferred alternative and the companion financial plan. Then we'll have an internal review draft of the public review draft that we'll be looking at, and then we'll have all of 2019 to do the public review and adoption process. It has to be approved by November of 2019, or else we will be not meeting our deadline, which is not a good thing. So I just want you to have a heads up. I want to make sure that you feel that you have enough time to give your input and to let us know your concerns. But it'll help us if we work together on that and in meeting our interim deadlines. So.
Mr. Weldon?
Though I never have enough time, but I'll try. And when you get public comments, you do an issue response.
Well, we have been talking about that. We have focused our comment response summaries on specific documents. I had mentioned to one person in the public that we would do a comment response summary on the survey input, but that is becoming onerous, and there are hundreds of comments. So what we are doing is going through the public input. Several of us are going through with an eagle eye to look at everything, to make sure that things aren't slipping through. And I just want you to know that what we're modeling is not everything that you're going to see in the MTP. Anything that looks like a policy or an action item, we're keeping those to carry forward to Chapter 8. It's Chapter Implementation. So right now, we're just looking at specific individual projects that we can model, that we can use the model for.
Okay, so that's the modeling. I guess my concern is when people comment, they want to know that they got to you, that you considered it. And this is not just you, but any public process. And they don't always hear back, oh, we looked at it. So if people comment, do you have a way to email if you do an issue response at whatever level, email people who have commented and say, hey, the issue response is done. Please find our response to your comment on this website or something. But a lot of times people comment, and that's it. They never hear anything, but they see what they requested isn't done, and then public trust is weakened.
Yeah, we have a summary of all the comments received up through the first public meeting online, and we posted that it was available. So it's a summary. It's not a response to each of the comments for individual comments at that point. And then we had the summary of the charrette online. But there again, and all the comments were captured and online. But there again, we did not do an individual comment response. But just being transparent, letting everybody, so people could see what their neighbors had said also. So we're kind of thinking about doing something different for the next survey and the next public meeting. Not sure how that's going to go yet. So that the community, we're talking about maybe a community online comment blog where people can see what everybody's seeing. The comment response summaries, we've done them for the individual documents, the tech memos so far. But typically when we do projects, we don't do comment response summaries on survey responses and that kind of thing. We definitely do when the document gets to the public review stage. We definitely do them for that.
And when it's available, do you then email the people who commented and say, hey, this is posted, or did they have to come looking?
Well, they, it depends on how they, well, no, we haven't been getting back to them.
Yeah, okay. Is that really difficult, or is that asking a lot to do that?
We,
Hundreds and hundreds of comments.
Yeah, I'd say it
we've
is.
talked as a team.
Is it 50 people, you know? You get hundreds of comments, might be 10 people. So, and I just think it's important to a lot of people who, when they comment, does it just go into this black hole? And if it does, then they're dissuaded from participating anymore.
So John, what beyond some sort of confirmation of a comment received are you expecting?
You know, if, and we posted a response. So it's like 2 months later, you say, you know, and we posted a response. Because to be told, yes, I got your thing, your comment. Okay, well, we assume you did, I emailed it to you. But what did you think of it? You say, well, we're not going this route because of X. And that's very valuable to people to learn about their role and then.
I think what she was referring to were the survey responses.
No, I'm sorry, but I'm just talking more broadly. And it's just something that
I have a
has been an
suggestion.
issue for a while.
I think
It
the
came up
scope
recently.
of, I think the scope of that would be a challenge for a department when you're dealing with hundreds of comments.
I don't-
But I do think that a mechanism by which at least notification that the comment has been received is an important first step. And beyond that, notification that your comment is being addressed or has been addressed in the issue response matrix.
I
Right,
think
that would be
I think
fine.
the tactic would be to, rather than get specific to the individual, because that is an onerous process at some level, what you do is when the final document is published, then an automatic response goes out.
Mhm.
We have finalized our process that you commented on, please have a review. I think there's a way where you can make it a general practice where
Yeah.
if there is a public comment response, they'll see that. If there's not, they'll see what's there, but they'll know then that you received the comment, which could be the first response, and the second one would just be, we've completed the process, and if you'd like, you can see it here.
That's what I'm looking for, something like that, which could be months later.
But it doesn't have to be
But
specific.
it won't be
to the
specific to
item.
their original
Right,
message.
I would just say point to the issue response. And
Yeah.
say, hey, we finished our issue
know,
responses, they can
yeah.
look through,
Just
find
a
their
feedback
issue.
email that
A
says we're
lot,
done.
a lot depends on how the comment came in.
Right.
At the state level, we have 5 ways of getting comments. Okay, and we don't have time to hand enter in everybody's phone number or email. On the systems that people do electronic commenting, they automatically get a confirmation, plus they get a copy of their comment, so they can do what they want. And then when we're finished, they're loaded, we just hit the button and boop, they get a response that they know that a response has been posted. But if you have people who are faxing or mailing or dropping off or leaving an oral comment, I mean, those are difficult. Those are extremely difficult to get the comments out. And
I would
so we have-
wager that those are becoming fewer and fewer. They're probably not so small that they're not significant, but I would,
The majority of our comments are orally done
In
without any
hearings?
comments, yes.
so then aren't those recorded? Oh,
Yeah, but they don't give their addresses and phone numbers or how we go get them commented on.
So then I guess the method would be wherever practical, a kind of just a methodological response we build in. We finalized the document you commented on, wherever possible. Seems reasonable.
We do have an email list for people who have signed up to get responses, to have signed up to get information on the website. So we do have those folks we can email to. We actually have not received that many comments through email for the survey. It's just been all through the survey. So we've had 150 comments built into the survey we've just seen the raw data. So that would be impossible to get back to individuals on if we were not given the data that way. But in the past, what our practice has been to focus on, then when the public review draft, absolutely, we will have an in-depth public comment response summary for that. We probably will do that also for the Tech Memo 3, because it will be a document and a deliverable. I do appreciate what you're saying. I do think it's important for people to know that their input has been considered and how it was considered. not every single comment lends itself to that. It might just be saying, well, that's why I don't take the Glen Highway, because it always breaks down, you know, those kinds of things.
Okay, look fine, thanks.
You can look at that.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Any comments from the public?
Oh, we have to go back up.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah. No comments from the public? Okay, we'll go back up to agenda item 5C, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee letter reducing fatalities.
All right, great. So, so Zach from the BPAC is here to speak to this letter, and I'll just give you a very brief background. So earlier this year, we had some tragic fatalities. The BPAC thought it was important to devise a letter to address the importance of reasons behind why Anchorage has had a rate of fatalities. These are explained in the letter that you have before you. So a couple of things that they wanted to address were roadway speed and design issues. So they have a comprehensive sort of approach and includes some tools that are listed on the bottom, bulleted out, that other cities have used successfully to help curb their fatality rates. And the letter is signed by the BPAC chair, and the recommendation before you is just to adopt the Vision Zero philosophy of design on Anchorage roads consistent with the National Transportation Safety Board recommendations, and just to consider the letter and maybe a plan of action in the future to help address these. And I'll let Zach speak to the letter.
Thanks. There's a Zach Fields, member of the BPAC. We've talked about speed and safety at many BPAC meetings related to many different projects, and also different collisions. When you look at the data across states and across nations, there's wide variation in fatality rates. And I think it's safe to assume that humans are equally careless or careful across countries. So when you look at the widely divergent fatality rates, it's reasonable to assume that those are based on differences in infrastructure. So the Mayor's Vision Zero initiative is a great framework to address this, because really the letter just says, hey, let's design roadways that take into account the realities of human behavior and try to take steps that are going to reduce fatalities. And certainly chief among those are reducing vehicle speeds through things like narrowing lane widths, implementing road and lane diets, and taking other steps. So I actually didn't have a formal presentation. I really just wanted to be here in case there are any questions kind of about BPAC discussion and what led us to draft this letter. So there is certainly a growing body of data. I think underlying the letter, including that really culminated with that NTSB recommendation. So if you all have any other questions about BPAC discussions, I'm happy to try and answer them. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee? Mr. Weldon?
I think, and we talked about this at the last meeting, didn't we? So this is a carryover topic, right?
We didn't have the
talk
letter at the
about
last
it
meeting.
in relationship to the letter. We talked about it in relationship to the complete streets and the Vision Zero conversation that's been ongoing.
Maybe it was an attack. Did they go through
It was
this?
a TAC
Okay,
2
so
weeks
I was
ago.
there. You know, Zach, kind of your list of things to do, I think, especially looking 30 years in this town, we are doing them. I mean, it wasn't done at all, really, 30 years ago. Jim may correct me on some, but it wasn't the routine. And now, new roads all deal with this stuff, and then we're as you know better than anyone, really, we're retrofitting like crazy. So, you know, I agree very much that these things need to be done, and I'm thrilled that we're doing so much of it. So are you saying we need to double our pace or something, or what's the BPAC sense on this?
That's something that we've talked about in the context of maintenance, and I think if there's obviously this level of detail and then the letter, and other BPAC members may have their own opinions about kind of the best opportunity to make additional improvements beyond the ones that are being implemented now. FHWA has put out some good guidance on both flexibility and restriping, and I think the biggest opportunity in a cost-constrained environment is to look at repaving. What's the right term, Jim, where you're just taking off a very little bit on the top and repaving before you need to do the kind of deep repave.
Pavement preservation.
Pavement preservation, right. So when you're doing a pavement preservation project, looking at changing lane configurations, narrower lanes, adding bike lanes, I think we don't do that systematically. And given that we do pavement preservation on a whole lot more lane miles every year than we do, say, a Spinard Road type, whole redesign, that's the big opportunity. If you can go in there and look at safety and speed in a pavement preservation context, that's going to be, in my opinion, your single biggest opportunity to make safety improvements. And I think those are going to be improvements that have other benefits as well. Quality of life in neighborhoods, economic development benefits, improved access for other modes. So that's my personal view on it. If you could do one more thing, we don't systematically look at safety in the context of pavement preservation. It's more, hey, let's preserve what we got. And that's great, but we can do more.
I learned something recently, because I'm actually have someone looking at why does it cost so much to do a bike lane? Because we think just paint the stupid line on the road. How hard can this be? And when we were on the BPAC, we had like $1 million, and we're thrilled we're going to paint all these lines on there. And a year later, we had a bunch of studies, engineering studies, spent $1 million. We're going, this stinks. Those numbers are very vague in general. Go to the accountant with those. But recently I heard if you change the position of lanes, then when you get to intersections that may have sensors in them for the cars, you have to move those. And that's where you get into engineering at huge dollars. So a question to someone here, maybe Jim, how many intersections, when we do a pavement preservation, do most intersections have those sensors underneath them where that's an issue, or is that just not usually an issue?
It's a problem at just about every single intersection in this town.
Because we have those sensors, and if there's a traffic signal, can I assume that there's sensors there? And if you add a bike lane, so you're adding 5, then you shift lanes or shrink them a foot or 2, that has to be done, or kind of sort of should be?
Has to be done.
Yeah, and that's,
I mean, our practice so far has been not to extend bike lanes through intersections. So even if all you did was add a bike lane up to close to the intersection and a pavement preservation and leave the sensors in the lane configuration for the intersection, that would be an improvement, and then you could address the sensors at a later point would be my suggestion for that circumstance. Somewhere on timing.
Yeah, and that gets to the root of my question that I was going to pose, because I'm not an expert in the loop sensors at intersections. Does your car have to be perfectly aligned in the center of a travel lane for it to work? If we're talking about shifting a car 2 feet, 3 feet to the left, will it not detect?
Anything more than a couple of feet of shift is enough to give you the risk of not triggering the sensors.
Sensor. And is it, I know that not every project in this town is completed to the exact specifications of the drawings, so is it fair to say then that we don't entirely understand where that loop exists at every intersection, so we could definitively say 3 feet this way, no good, 2 feet is?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And last question, is there any way without digging those up to do something like that? I'm picturing an old man out there with the metal detector. That's exactly what I was thinking.
I have been told that no, we can't. I have not went out there with the metal detector myself to try it, but.
I just would give a project
Thank you.
as an example that, as idealistic as we want to be, even when we get a project approved to do these things, it doesn't always work out. So an example of a project was the C Street Bike Corridor. The Cordova Street Bike Corridor. From 9th Avenue or from 5th Avenue to 15th Avenue. And there was about $1 million appropriated for that project through, I don't know, this process or another, but they literally spent so far $1 million on restriping paint for basically 8 blocks. So 3 inches of paint in 2 places. And then when we complained, they came back in and said, we'll grind them in so they're ground into the pavement. But we basically spent over $1 million for nothing that goes away. And then they came back and said, we made a mistake and we needed to figure out this corner because there's a vault down there that maybe asbestos and all of these things. And that was supposed to be done last year and still nothing. And so even the money we're programming for safety improvements for bike and pedestrian often just vanishes somewhere into the ether. And doesn't matter how often I complain about certain projects, it just doesn't seem to resolve. And I don't know that that's germane to this body and its deliberations. I agree we need to find systematic ways to make change, and we need to keep to account our projects that we have already approved
That's the answer.
to
How do
do the
you,
job.
how do you get your largest ongoing pots of money working on safety? And, I mean, localities all across the country have worked on it. I think it was NACTO that put out a quick builds toolkit on how do you build projects quickly at much lower cost. So some localities have figured it out, including for everything from bike lanes to pedestrian infrastructure to kind of reclaiming part of larger than necessary, inefficiently utilized intersections. So there are definitely models we can look to do this, and because of the FHWA guidance on both flexibility and restriping, it's, at least you have a framework to try it.
And I might just add to that we have a bunch of moving parts right now. Sorry, I jumped in. I don't know if that's appropriate, but we have a bunch of new moving parts. Can't talk. We have moving parts. They include our non-motorized plan that is underway right now. We should have a draft out for that in May or June. We have a complete streets policy that's hopefully going to come before you next month. We have a coordinated transportation plan that's also underway. We also have a, what was the last thing I was thinking about? Street typologies plan that will begin soon after that. And I'm suggesting, oh, and I'm sorry, the Vision Zero plan, which Kittleson is working on actively right now. One of our big challenges is coordinating all of those together to come up with a set of recommendations to help improve bike and ped safety. And I think it might, if you're thinking of something, a plan of action to address this letter, it might be helpful to, I suggest, schedule a work session after at least the May-June timeframe to sort of look at the findings of all these, because we do have national experts working on these issues right now. And I think it's important to give them the time to analyze the data that they've been collecting to give us a firm set of recommendations that we can actually take forward and will help us. And one of those is cost. How can we do things for less money? And so I would just put that forward as an option of an action plan.
Mr. Judy?
Actually, go ahead, John. You had your hand up first.
Well, just thinking on this, when I was on the BPAC, we looked at a number of projects and we commented on them and so on. And I wonder if, as they come forward, it's probably seasonal, if you got a list of pavement preservation projects and could comment on them.
I think DOT typically sends those to the elected officials in the region, in the area in which they're taking place.
We have a public involvement process that doesn't necessarily send it to any specific elected official group.
I've never gotten them, but I'd rather have you get them and then you tell me. But is that something that's hard to do? I mean, you have a list of those projects, send them to them 6 months in advance and get their comments?
You're saying send it to BPAC?
The BPAC, yeah.
Our pavement preservation projects are to preserve what's striped on the ground as we speak. If we start moving stripes and lines, it requires engineering to go back in and do a comprehensive analysis of what the effects will be before we start moving lines and stripes and the rest of it. And we're back to why the price goes up
Maybe we can do an
exponentially.
engineering project that just does that part first, and then they can rely on that in future.
Yes, sir. Judy?
Yeah, I don't know to whom I should address this, but I'm gonna start with Craig, because you're the most handsome man in the room.
Next to you.
Exactly. So I guess what's being asked of the policy committee is to accept the letter, approve the letter. What is the action that we take? And a follow-up question, what is the consequence of that action?
What I see in the last paragraph there is request that the policy committee take comprehensive actions to manage and reduce automobile travel speeds and adopt a Vision Zero philosophy, design on acreage roads, et cetera. So,
That didn't help.
So
No?
my suggestion, if I may, is that I think that's a great idea. I think you should take some comprehensive actions. with all of the moving parts that we have going on right now, we have national experts figuring out, analyzing data, a best way for us to move forward. I would encourage maybe a work session in that June, May timeframe when you've got the Vision Zero analysis is hopefully complete by then. Now motorized plan recommendations will be there. Coordinated transportation model will be done. We are doing a lot of things right now, and I think we definitely want to take advantage of the expertise that we have when you're trying to make some decisions on what things to improve. Be my recommendation.
So what I heard there was in May, June, schedule a joint work session with the bike ped people, all these experts in this group to have a kind of next step conversation. I think that's what I heard.
Yeah, that I think helps with my understanding. So this is really just more of an informational item rather than an action item.
I think Joni's suggestion is to kind of deal with the purported action item there by having a work session and look at some of those things that they have come up with, recommended actions that might deal with this topic that the BPAC is concerned about, and go that route. I mean, you could adopt Vision Zero, but it's not finalized yet. You could say, yeah, we're going to take some comprehensive actions, but her suggestion would be they're going to be coming up with these suggestions that are going to be helping that regard, and study it then and then go.
Another option would be, at the TAC meeting, which I didn't attend, Mr. Thomas, Traffic Safety from DOT came and gave an excellent presentation on work that he's doing. I would, throw that out there, maybe be a recommendation that this group invite him to come by here and lecture him on the work that lecture us on the work that he's been doing, and let us understand what he's working on and how it interacts with these policies.
So there is no specific action that's required this item today.
Not necessarily, but I do think it would be good to have some form of action so that it is communicated back to BPAC and the public at large that we have, I guess, accepted this letter that, didn't, to use John's story earlier, that BPAC didn't submit this to a black hole. So I guess I'll try to make one in a second, but I need help in understanding what I'm going to ask for, I guess.
The reason the request for the action was a little generic is because, like Joni said, there are multiple policies where y'all can have an effect. So, I mean, her idea is one way to look at which are the right policies and how to use each of them to reach this goal.
Well, I guess I can ask you that question then, since you're BPAC. I mean, that is in the future, and I think that's a great idea. Would some form of recognition today, whatever form that takes, be valuable for you guys, or?
Sure, I think a work session makes a lot of sense because then you can look at what are other states and localities doing to reach these goals and, the constraints that exist on projects.
Well, I guess I'm asking in addition to that or beyond that. I mean, that's in the future.
Yeah.
For today, if we took some form of action that said, hey, we got your letter, this is great stuff, does that have any value to you or not?
I guess that's not something we discussed specifically at BPAC. So as far as I'm concerned, scheduling a work session is a very tangible and meaningful follow-up.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I mean, if the concern is literally having an action that recognizes that we had this conversation, then it is a simple act like the Assembly does. We would move to accept this letter and we would schedule a work session where we would make some next steps. And so I think then a letter could be drafted back to the body from Craig that said the policy committee accepted your letter and is going to move forward on your recommendation.
So they care more about the work session.
Yeah, of course. I mean, does it need to be that official is the question.
Topic needs to have the public input when we're done discussing
Right.
before an
We
action.
know, we're just-
Any other questions by the committee? Any questions or comments by the public?
Hi, I'm Cheryl Richardson, and I just want to very much thank the committee for bringing this letter forward and your committee for accepting it. It's been a long time coming, and it'll be appreciated all over town.
My name is Pierce Schwab. I'm the director of Bike Anchorage, and not surprisingly, we are very much in support of the principles in this letter. I also believe that some kind of formal response would be helpful, and our hope is it could embolden AMAT staff and maybe the consultants working on a lot of these plans to incorporate more of these principles, things like reviewing speed limits and maybe some lane diets.
Any other public comments? Yes.
Hi, I'm Dana Mendoza. I work over in the Department of Health and Human Services. I'm rather new, so I only know part of you. So I'm the Air Quality Project Manager. I'm working on Bike to Work Day and trying to work actively on helping pedestrian and bicycle issues in the community. I've had the great pleasure of being able to be involved at a different level than a lot of people by being involved in AMATS and PME and the community and Vision Zero, so kind of popping up in all of the meetings to kind of connect these dots. So I came here today to also really kind of second what Joni's saying. I didn't know that, but all of these plans are being made, and I just moved from Arizona. I was hired from out of state for my position. And so coming as an outsider and trying to wrap my head around all of these various plans and ascertain what the end goal is was a little difficult, but I feel like it's all coming together, and I feel like this is a wonderful opportunity and well-timed, and I'm glad that TAC decided to send it through in a timely fashion because I think it's really important. I've been able to anecdotally just deal with the public a lot, and I can tell you safety is the number one thing. I'm going to be teaching people cycling and taking throughout the community, and that's pretty much all anyone wants to talk to me about in regards to this. And I believe with our goals in economic development and being a great city by whatever year that is or whatever that term is, and with the Live, Work, Play initiatives, in addition to Vision Zero and wanting to be a winter bike destination and whatnot, I just think this is the perfect time to really take all of those plans at the end and use them to make as grand of gesture as you can with the policies, because I just feel it's prudent. And even just today before I came here, the gal that handles facilities is new and came in and told me she would love to bike in her community. She's in one of the more underserved communities, and she told me she likes to take her kids out, but she doesn't know how. And she was showing me the maps, even hard to read. So I was telling her I'm working on making more user-friendly maps. So I think the need is there from, cyclists that are already doing this down to getting people more active. And I think that's will help our community on so many levels. So I just want to really emphasize the importance of the letter and really taking into consideration, and not just AMATS, but really bringing the complete streets policy and whatnot to the muni-wide attention and using this momentum, not just to let another 4 or 10 years pass while we make more plans. So thank you very much.
Any other comments by the public? Thank you. What is the will of the committee?
Okay, all right. I'm gonna suffer through a motion, how's that?
All right.
I move in 2 parts. The first part, that the AMATS Policy Committee, are we allowed to draft letters? As a
Probably,
policy?
we'll kind of like instruct staff to draft
Okay,
a letter.
I like the sound of that. The Policy Committee shall instruct staff vehemently to draft a letter to the TAC and the BPAC, informing them that we have received and enthusiastically supported their letter. And the second part of my motion is that we will schedule a work session. Joni, I might need help on how to word this thing.
A work session to review the coordinated plans, Vision Zero, non-motorized plan, coordinated transportation plan, and what was the last one?
Master Lane.
Complete streets policy.
Complete street, yeah.
Sorry, yes.
This summer.
Perfect.
Get that done.
Yeah, second.
Wait, Chris, could we add just a little bit on the end that said with the intent to create action items?
Sure.
At a work session?
With the intent. It's just
The intent.
because, yeah, the purpose, the thing that I keep hearing is plan, you even said it yourself, plans, no action. And so the purpose is to come out with some tangible ways we could proceed. So I just would like to know. Not just a session to talk about plans, but a session to talk about plans that might generate action.
Do you need us to try and repeat any of it, or?
Well, I will try, and you can correct any mistakes. Okay, we have before us a motion that the AMATS Policy Committee will instruct staff to draft a letter to the TAC and the BAC to inform them that we have received and support the letter before us, and that we would also schedule a work session to review plans that are being created this summer with intent to create action items.
With one change, not the BAC, the BPAC.
BPAC, thank you.
The BPAC.
Actually, I'll send it enthusiastic
Second.
support.
Hey,
Oh, you did? I didn't hear you include it. I didn't hear a second, so.
And the motion was provided by Mr. Shooty and seconded by Ms. Heil. Are there any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
that was both parts, the letter and the work session.
All right, now the floor is open for comments from the committee.
I have one.
Ms. Heil.
I'd just like to remind, well, now we have DOT and MOA, same table, reminding you from air quality perspective that we're entering in the dust season. Yesterday, for at least a portion of the day, one of the monitors was reading unhealthy for sensitive populations for PM10. It's moderate right now, and that we do not want to have air quality problems here. And so I'm hoping that the clean sweepers are coming out there and making sure it's up there so we don't have any air quality problems, because we do not want to go to PM10 attainment. All right? No.
I will second that by saying that I received an email just yesterday from air quality folks asking for the cooperation between MOA and DOT and dispensing mag chloride mainly in the Eagle River areas. And we'll be following up. Like I said, I received it yesterday afternoon. I haven't taken action on it, but yeah, we'll forward that to the maintenance and operations folks to make sure they coordinate with the MOA.
Right now, the moderate one is at Laurel Street, that's on Tudor, off Tudor, so. Anyway,
That's a question. I mean, why there? Is it wind stirring up because we haven't cleared the streets yet? So we need to clear them sooner, or is there what other action?
well, you have your freeze thaw, right, which brings you put material on the roads so that we don't slip around, and then it dries, it gets re-entrained up in the air from roads, and it settles, and then it freezes, and so then it happens again the next day. And so it's a constant, until you pick up the material, it will continue to re-entrain and load up. And then if you have on your, from roads coming in and off on the big roadways, you pull it in and off. And why that affects AMATS is AMATS has to show conformity with your carbon monoxide and your PM10 area in Eagle River. And that's based on your monitoring data now. Because your maintenance area with a limited maintenance plan, we don't have to model, which is a lot cheaper, cuts out a lot of effort. However, it's based on your monitoring data, and last time we did this, we couldn't meet the easy tests. We had to do a very detailed analysis to show that we were still okay, but if the levels stay high, we will have a very difficult time. And then we could lose our ability to do the limited maintenance and have to go back to the modeling, which is expensive and hard.
Thanks.
Additional comments, Mr. Shooty? Sir. Mr. Costa?
I just pass my regards to Mr. Kemp, that recognize that he's probably the most busy man in the state right now.
Yeah. Mr. Wellesley?
So good, thank you.
Now the floor is open for comments from the public. Yes, ma'am.
I wasn't planning to talk about this, but I think it's important to know that there's really no healthy level of particulate load. It's a scale that just keeps on going. The more particulate in the air, the more people get sick. And some of us are more congested this time of year. And thank you, Cindy, for putting the law behind it and the process to encourage our street people to come forward. But it's, I always feel that the air quality, the health effects of air quality are not put forward as strongly as they should be. And I hope we can do a better job in the future.
And who are you?
Oh, my name's Cheryl.
Thank you, Cheryl. Any other comments from the public? Thank you for participating. This meeting is adjourned at 2:35.